Welcome to Dig It, a real estate podcast by Hubble Realty Company.
All right, welcome everyone. My name is Rachel Flint, Senior Vice President of Iowa Home Building and Land Development Operations, the longest title there is. And I'm here today with the wonderful Sara Hopkins. She is a realtor with RE/MAX Precision and is also ranked number 15 in all of the Des Moines Area Association of Realtors. So a really high-performing, phenomenal woman. I'm so glad you're here today. Welcome, Sara.
Thank you so much for having me. It is an honor to be here, and I'm just so excited to get to talk with you.
Yeah. Well, full disclosure, Sara actually does list some homes for Hubble Homes, so she is a listing agent for us, and has really kicked it out of the park from the get-go. She started June 1, and has already off to the races with her team, so we are so thrilled about that. But for those of you who don't know you, Sara, let's take a step back. Tell us about Sara. And you grew up in Des Moines, and your mother is a very famous woman in Des Moines.
Well, I don't know about famous, but she is on the Des Moines City Council.
That's right. Linda Westergaard.
She's a very busy woman.
She is, and she is also a realtor and a huge advocate for real estate in Des Moines. So we're so thrilled that Linda is a part of City Council and help making positive improvements in the city of Des Moines. So we're grateful for that. But back to you. Let's talk about you. And how did you get into real estate? Tell me about that journey.
So after college, I actually moved to England. I lived in England for 4 years.
Where at?
I lived in Coventry, which is where my husband is from.
Oh my gosh.
I met him while I was studying abroad in Australia while I was in college. Long story, graduated, moved to England, lived there for 4 years. We got married, decided that we wanted to ultimately end up in Des Moines, have our family here. So we sold everything that we owned, and we did a little 6-month around the world traveling, shoestring budget, spent all our money, came home thinking I had just had this fabulous job working for a magazine in England, and I thought I would have no problem getting a job here. I really did not want to get into real estate at all. It was 2009, which was the middle of a recession.
Yep, tough year.
So yeah, it was pretty bleak. I definitely got knocked down a few pegs, realizing that, what I thought was this amazing international marketing and PR experience, and I was not getting hired. So rather depressing stage of life,
right.
thinking one thing and finding out that it's very different. My mom said, why don't you get licensed? As mentioned earlier, she is currently a realtor and was a realtor back then. It was the middle of a recession, but she fortunately was not impacted by the recession as much as a lot of agents were, which again is one of the reasons why I believe I'm successful today, is because she's taught me how to build my business on relationships, which is what helped her throughout that time frame of the recession. So I begrudgingly got licensed, started working with her, thinking this is temporary until I find my fabulous job in PR and marketing, and ended up absolutely loving it. And then really quickly kind of started to outsell my mom.
Ooh.
So that's always been a nice little fun banter that we have going between the two of us, is who can sell more.
Right.
So as that organically happened, I realized that I really needed to join to have my own team just out of necessity. It was never that I wanted to have a big team, just needed to have more resources to help. So I hired an assistant, and then she quickly grew in that role and became full-time sales, and we were able to hire another assistant. And now we just added a few more agents. So now we're a team of 8.
Okay.
And we have a full-time communications director that helps with all of the transactions and the marketing and communicating with all parties. And yeah, it's been a really wild, fun, unexpected journey, but it is definitely something that I'm extremely passionate about. And it's so cool to get to be a part of really the most important decision that most people make in their lives.
Definitely. It is the largest purchase most people will make in their life.
Yeah. And it's not just houses, as cheesy as that sounds. These are people's lives. I mean, I often find out, before the rest of the world does, when somebody's getting a divorce, or if they're pregnant, or, having to transition into housing because of health conditions. So it's really, truly an honor to get to be a part of people's lives in that way.
People always say that home is actually the second most emotional word in the English language. Second
That
only.
just gave me goosebumps.
It's second only to mom. And so I'm sorry for the dads out there.
We all know mom's rule.
Mom's rule. But home has such a significance for everyone, and you get to be a part of that. Going back to talking about the recession, you started in the recession. And I think those of us who have been through that big recession in 08, 09, and 10, coming into that, you have nowhere to go but up, so to speak. And you learn a lot of good habits.
It's why I truly do believe I credit a lot of my success to the fact that I did start during a recession. Mm-hmm. I did not know a world that you could put a sign in a yard and it would sell. That was like unimaginable back then. It wasn't uncommon to have a listing for a year and have 2 showings on it.
Wow.
So I really built the foundation for listing homes and working with people on the fact that you're hiring me if you want more than a sign in your front yard.
Right.
So we are going to do a full marketing campaign for your home. It's going to be detailed and it's going to be accountable, and you're going to get updated on it every week so that you know what I'm doing behind the scenes. I can't control the interest rates. I can't control the economy. I can't control what's happening with all of that. But what I can control is how much exposure I can help get your home. And my job is to get your home seen by as many potential buyers as possible. It's a numbers game.
It is.
The more people that can see your home, the more likely we are to get people through the door. The more likely we are to get people through the door, the more likely we are to get you an offer.
Yeah.
So I even adopted that philosophy even during the craze of 2020 to 2022 is, I could list your home at this and put a sign in the yard and get it sold with 7 offers. That's not always really what's in the best interest for you. Let's really strategically sit down and figure out what you want to sell it for, but also how soon do you want to sell it? What's your ideal close date? All of those factors that go into it.
Right. There is a lot. I just sold my home, and I knew
it would sell quickly.
It did. So let's talk about your website, because you talk about all the different things that you do for someone when you list their home and all of that. But you have a lot of great resources on your website. What is your website? And kind of talk a little bit about some of those things, like your homeowner guides, your checklists, all the different things that really helps prepare not only a seller but a buyer to buy a home.
Well, and I know we were talking a little bit before this started about kind of the success in sales. I don't believe that we are salespeople. We are educating people. Our job is to make sure that we are giving the tools and the resources for people to have the power and the knowledge to make those educated decisions. So we have a lot of free guides that we offer, everything from, how to be a homeowner, a 10-step guide, and then also for sellers as well. Hey, we're thinking of selling in the next 6 months to a year. What should we start doing now? And I say it's never too early to talk to a realtor about what you should be doing, because some projects may not be worth investing in, whereas other ones, you should probably start thinking about doing that now. Yeah. From a home buyer's perspective, we want to make sure that you understand what it's like. You would be amazed at how many people come to me and say, I'm ready to buy a home, but they haven't met with a lender. They don't know what they can afford. They don't know what their price point is. Wow. And it is just so critical that we're educating people on all of those things, which is how our class began for the How Homeownership for Women course, which is a 4-week course that we teach. It's 4 different modules teamed up with experts in each field to give women not only all of the tools and resources, but to make sure that they feel empowered, that they know what to do. So whether that's a single woman who has never bought a home before, or maybe it's somebody who's divorced and their partner handled all of the finances. Right. They often come in and they're like, I literally don't know where to begin. Mm-hmm. So that is really my mission, and my main goal is to make sure that the buyers feel empowered to know that they can make these choices and make smart choices and make good choices. Mm-hmm. And they're not going to get into a house that is going to cause them severe financial hardship down the road.
That's right.
Will you say that name of the program again, just for the people in the back?
Yeah, it's called How Homeownership for Women. We are launching our 2nd class starting in September. So it's a free course. There's no cost. It's 4 weeks. We do ask for a commitment to attend every week. But it's really fun. We had 12 women participate in our first course earlier this year, And the coolest part was that when it finished, they were like, I literally never thought that I was going to be able to buy a home. And I feel like even though I am not ready right this second, I am absolutely filled with the knowledge and the power that to get there.
That's great.
Which is all we can ask for.
Right. So Sarah, how could people sign up for that if they wanted to?
Yeah.
Anybody who's listening out there wants to sign up for that course.
You can go to our website at, is it real? Gosh, why can't I? Is it Realtor Sara Hopkins or Sara Hopkins
Sara
Realtor?
Hopkins Realtor.
SaraHopkinsRealtor.com. My Instagram handle is the opposite of whatever my website
That makes
is.
it nice and confusing.
SaraHopkinsRealtor.com. And there's a whole page titled How Home Ownership for Women, where you can sign up for it, but also learn more about the course.
We'll put a link in our podcast notes and in our posts as well, too. So people can find
Thank
it
you.
there.
Thank you.
So lots of decisions to be made. And when people are buying and making sure, like you said, it's not going to get into a financial hardship. What are some of the common myths that you're seeing out there in terms of people thinking when they buy a house? I know for me, like sometimes I see people who are thinking I still have to put 20% down before I can buy a house. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I think the 20% down myth is definitely the most common. And I don't know why. I guess maybe at one point in time that was the case. But there are so many opportunities to get into a home with as little as 3% down. Other myths that people hear about is that they don't think that they're going to be able to afford home ownership. But when we really sit down and I put them with a good lender, having a good lender is key to this process. Somebody who is not just running your application and saying, here's what you're approved for. They're sitting down and saying, okay, what other bills do we have? What are your finances like? Here's what this looks like. When you think about what you're paying in rent, oftentimes you are able to afford a home, and maybe it's going to take some time to figure out how to get the down payment that you need, but you're going to be investing in something rather than what you're doing every month for rent. And I think the myth that you can't afford it is often crushed once you sit down and really, really go into the details and talk with the lender and figure out what you can be approved for.
I've found that sometimes the people who think they can't qualify are the ones who shouldn't worry as much as those who are overly confident. And you're like,
yeah. And
maybe.
You know why a lot of that is because people who are sometimes overly confident, they have a lot of things, but they also have a lot of debt that comes with those things. So people who are living just, maybe more within their means and don't have a lot of those big bills, realize that actually I can start investing in home ownership.
Yeah, that's great. All right, let's get to some other topics here. I want to talk about what's happening in the real estate world right now with agents. You're on the DMAR board, so you know this inside and out, I'm sure. But let's talk a little bit about some of the rule changes and transparency, some of the changes that went into effect July 1, and I think there are more changes that are coming August 17th. Yeah. Can you talk a little bit about those and kind of just for the real estate public out there, just kind of talk through some of those changes, because it shouldn't change things to some extent, but it will change things.
Yeah, that's exactly what I said to my team today. I said, guys, I don't think much is going to change. Well, actually, a lot is going to change, but I don't think much is going to change. And the way I explain that is, first of all, the rules that went into place July 1st, I truly believe are for the better, for everyone, for realtors and for consumers.
And so what are those changes?
So the changes that as of July 1st in the state of Iowa, you must have a buyer broker agency form signed before you show a home to a buyer. So in the past, somebody could call me and say, hey, my name's Joe Schmo. I got your name from a friend. I'm thinking about buying a house, not really sure, but I did see one that I want to look at. Could we go look at it? And then I could choose to show that to him with no agency signed. I could hope that he would connect with me and choose to work with me as his realtor, but he has no obligation to. That has now changed. When somebody calls to look at a home, we have to meet and we have to have a form signed stating I am taking agency to work with you. Just like when you list your home, you sign an agency agreement to list your home with that realtor. You now have to sign that form when you work with a realtor to buy a home. Now, the difference is every realtor is going to run their business a little differently. I could choose to show somebody a home and only have on that form that it's applicable to one house. I probably wouldn't do that because what we have always implemented and what we will continue to implement is that we are going to have buyer consultations. And most agents do, where we want to sit down. Previous to the rules July 1st, though, nothing had to formally be signed until you put an offer on a home. Now we are formally signing agency that, hey, we work for, we'll say 3%, which is it's negotiable. Everybody works for a different amount,
right.
But for this conversation, we'll say 3%.
And that's for the buyer.
That's for the buyers.
Okay.
And again, previously, this fee is traditionally part of the seller's costs. Mm-hmm. So now we're meeting with the buyer and saying, if the seller is not willing to pay that 3%, we are making sure that you understand that you are responsible for this 3%. Mm-hmm. So it's having those conversations. What is involved in hiring a realtor that's working for you? What does that look like? I think it's better for everyone because buyers can start to understand a little bit more about how our business is ran, is that it is a cost associated with buying a home. Mm-hmm. And if you look at 28 homes and you end up not buying, we don't get paid anything.
But you did all the work.
But we did all the work. So it also helps prevent times when, you know what, I have worked with a buyer and we have looked at a lot of homes and we've had a buyer consultation and I've thought that everything was very clear, but then they've went to an open house and fallen in love and they wrote an offer with another agent, which they have the right to do because there was no agency signed in advance. So having the form signed, I think, is going to be better for everybody. It helps consumers understand what our role is, and it helps realtors understand that they are going to be getting paid for the work that they're doing.
Okay, now you mentioned open house. I want to clarify a little bit on that. Does someone, if they go to an open house, can they go there without signing an agreement?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Because going to an open house, you are not, the realtor there is not taking agency. If they start sitting down and talking fiduciary duties with the buyer, then they would need to have an agency form signed.
Got it.
But up to that point, they don't because it's their listing that they are having open. They can answer questions about the home, but they cannot answer agency questions with the buyer.
Got it.
Until they take it.
Okay.
I also, if somebody gives a sign call, if somebody drives by my listing and calls my sign, I am able to show them that house without signing the form because I am showing them my listing.
Yes. Now I'm here, I will just give you an example that happened to, on one of our homes. An outside agent had a buyer, didn't have the buyer agreement. They went to and they were, the realtor told us, hey, they're going to write on this home. They went to another open house without that realtor of another builder. That builder got them to said, hey, just sign this, just so we can show you around. And they signed buyer's agency. And then they bought them. So that realtor who had done all that work leading up to it didn't have that buyer's agency and lost the sale.
Which is why it is a good thing.
Yes.
That we have, because I don't think that there's always malice involved from a buyer when that happens. I think sometimes they truly don't understand.
Right.
That you don't get paid unless you are, working with them throughout the whole process. And you want a realtor to represent you through the whole process. You want to have an advocate on your side that's representing you not only for the transaction, but through the home inspection and fighting for you if something happens with the appraisal or all kinds of things that happen throughout the journey. You want to have a realtor that's specifically working for you.
Let's just talk about the paperwork. My God, the paperwork.
Yeah, no kidding. It's a lot.
I'm always like, realtors earn what they make because
especially because so many of us, I'm sure, are great with people and not so great with paperwork. Maybe that's just me.
But that's why hiring a great team makes all of the difference in the world, right? Because then the buyer people make it look so easy.
100%. I've had so many clients say, I can't believe how much is actually involved because you just made everything seem so easy. I didn't even know that that was happening, which is our goal. We want it to be as seamless as possible. But sometimes when you do your job that well, then maybe they don't quite understand.
You got to make it look a little harder, right? Like
exactly.
Eric Quiner, I don't know if you know him. He's a realtor, but he's a phenomenal piano player. And I'll never forget, we were at the Builders show and we were at a hotel in the lobby and he started playing the piano and he's like, Rachel, as a piano performer, you got to make the easy notes look hard and make the hard notes look easy. And I was like, that is such a metaphor for life, Eric. You have no idea.
That is also like a life goal of mine. I want to be able to play one piano song.
I just go to him. He's great.
I want one song that I can, when there's a piano in the room, I can crush a song. But
it doesn't require the little kid with the knuckle roll. Did you ever learn that?
Absolutely.
That's my go-to song.
That's your go-to.
Never learned
Eric
piano.
Kleiner is the best, and he's a musician, which makes him even cooler.
He is a very cool dude. No doubt about that. Okay,
so that's the rule July 1st.
Yes.
Now, August 17th, that's a whole nother can of worms.
Right. Tell me about that.
This is where, honestly, I think, it is what it is. Our industry is going to adapt. We're going to be fine. Mm-hmm. But the whole point for the rules on August 17th changing, which the changes are on the MLS up to this point, it is shown that whatever has been agreed upon. So if I list a home and that seller is paying 3% to the buyer's agent, we have it listed on the MLS. That's the buyer's agent's proof that is the agreed upon amount. That is going away. Mm-hmm. So before we show a house now, we have to call ahead of time to say, I need to know what the compensation is on this home.
Can you do that?
That's what the new rule is.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that you could call because that could be portrayed as steering or no?
No. You have to get it. You have to get what that compensation is.
Okay.
Prior to showing it or prior to writing an offer.
Okay. Prior to writing. Okay.
Because the compensation cannot be part of the offer.
That's right. So I will just say
it's confusing.
So they can't put on their seller to pay buyer's agent commission because you can't, and I just want to make sure I get this right, you can't negotiate a previous contract with a new contract. Is that right? Or something along those lines? I'm not a lawyer.
I'm not a lawyer either. And the rules are complicated.
Yes.
But my understanding and the easiest way I can explain it is there is absolutely nothing changing that a seller can no longer pay the compensation.
Okay.
They can. They absolutely can. It just cannot be advertised on the MLS because that's the rule is that they're saying that it needs to be, the buyer needs to know in advance that their agent is getting 3%. So you can't say the home's listed at $200,000. Our offer is $205,000 with $5,000 of that going to the agent. It can't be part of the offer.
Okay.
It has to be agreed upon separately.
Okay. And how about the buyer's agent commission? Like they can't, the way I understand the rule is they cannot accept more than what that buyer's agency agreement is with that agent. Meaning if there is someone who's providing an agent bonus commission, for example. Now, does that change things? Because I know that's offered. We've even offered that.
I believe you can accept it, but it would have to be disclosed to your buyer.
Okay.
In that situation, I would always give the bonus to the buyer.
Right.
So, the forms that our brokerage, Remax Precision, has done a fantastic job of getting ahead of all of these forms. So we actually released these forms months and months ago.
Oh, great.
For the buyer broker agreement. And it's kind of hard not to get into the weeds explaining all of this, but basically it outlines what the options are so that it's all clear and completely transparent ahead of time of what the agent is getting paid. But what's different is that as August 17th, if my buyer wants to see a home and we have agreed that 3% is my compensation that I'm working for, mm-hmm. and the home that they want to see, that seller is only offering 2%.
Right.
I can say to them, do you want to see this home? They are only offering 2% compensation, which means that if you write an offer, you're making up the 1% difference.
And you can't put that in your mortgage because right now, if the seller is giving you the full 3, you can wrap that in your mortgage.
Correct.
And so your mortgage payment takes care of that. It's easy peasy.
Correct.
But if not, that 1% is cash straight from your pocket. Is that correct?
Correct. Okay. So this is why I believe not much will change. And I could be wrong. This is a fluid situation. You know, we're all going to adapt and be just fine. I know that because I know that people want realtors to represent them. And I know that realtors who do what they're supposed to do are going to be just fine. We're going to take care of clients and we're always going to do the right thing. Mm-hmm. That end of discussion, we will be fine. But the reason why I don't think much will change as far as compensation goes is that I've listed 8 houses this past month, and obviously we've had the conversations about it. And they say, well, if we wait until August 17th, you mean that we don't have to pay a buyer's agent compensation? Mm-hmm. I said, well, that's not, you still don't have to do that.
It's always negotiable.
It's always negotiable.
Right.
But come August 17th, if you aren't willing to pay a buyer's agent compensation, that buyer, if there are 2 homes that they both like in the same neighborhood, and one seller is paying 3% compensation to the buyer's agent, and you're paying 2% compensation, and to the buyer, they like both homes equally, that buyer is going to choose the one that the seller is going to pay that additional compensation, because they're now in an agreement with their agent that they have to make up the difference. Mm-hmm. So when I explain it to sellers that way, not one of them has said, oh gosh, I think I want to wait and not list, or oh gosh, I think I don't want to offer 3%. It makes things confusing because it's not listed on the MLS. But from a seller's standpoint, I don't believe that a lot of them will choose to not offer the compensation because, and I don't have the exact numbers in front of me, I should have printed it out, but we have a presentation from a local lender that shows a staggering number. I think it's either 85 or 88% of buyers that did conventional loans came to the table with the minimum down payment required, which means they don't have the extra cash to come to the table to pay their agent. But yet 98% of buyers used their own realtor to represent them in transactions. So buyers want realtors to represent them, but if they don't have the out-of-pocket cash to pay that, they're going to not be able to move forward on a home potentially that's not offering the compensation.
Right.
So I believe that it will be business. Things will adapt, things will be modified, but I think in the end, the same goal is wanted by all. Buyers want to be represented by realtors. Realtors can't work for free. Mm-hmm. There will be more transparency up front about what those fees are, which in turn I think will make it better for everyone in the end.
Yeah, I agree.
And you just have to adapt. I mean, I've not one time freaked out about this.
Right.
It's a change and it will be an adjustment, but I truly believe it's going to be better for everyone in the end.
Well, I think Des Moines is a real estate market that is heavily driven by realtors. I look at our sales at Hubble and it's 99% buyers are represented by realtors. It's just a fact. And I think that's the case with most builders in our marketplace. We are just a really heavy realtor driven market. Yeah. And I just don't see that changing anytime soon, like you said.
And I think the realtors who have built their business on relationships and educating their clients and working with them through the process and giving them all of the information and the knowledge and the tools and the resources that they need, they're going to be just fine. Right. If an agent has built their business on transactions, they probably may suffer. And you know what? Maybe that's okay. Maybe that's a good reminder for buyers that they do need to be interviewing the realtors that they're working with and making sure that they are working with somebody who's looking out for their best interest.
That's right. That's good. Well, let's talk a little bit about the market. Okay. So I've seen just on the resale side, a huge spike just within the last, I would say 2 months. Like when I look at the MLS, I take out Ames and all the other cities. Like I look at Des Moines and its surrounding suburbs, not Ames. I don't think Ames is a suburb of Des Moines, but it's in the MLS. Like it's in, so I take out those numbers. Like we were at 880 resales 2 months ago. And today, it's jumped significantly. I think we're like at 1,400.
Yeah. I'm definitely seeing a lot more inventory, which is making homes sit longer, which is also making price decreases happen.
Yes.
I think up to a couple months ago, we hadn't seen our market change that much because supply was still so low. Mm-hmm. Buyers have accepted the interest rates. They are what they are.
Right.
They're not going down. Waiting it out, it's not going to achieve anything other than delaying the inevitable. But sellers up to this point really weren't selling because they didn't want to get rid of their 2.5-3% interest rate. So we still had this very, very low supply and we still had demand, which were keeping prices where they were.
Right.
We are now starting to see more homes come on the market. And I think one of those reasons is because sellers also realize, okay, if I need to move, I have to also just accept the interest rates.
Right.
Do I stay in a home that no longer works for me to keep my 3% interest rate?
Right. Because at the end of the day, the quote is, right, date the rate, marry the house. You're committed to the house. I mean, your family needs aren't going to change. Your housing needs aren't going to magically change anytime soon. And so why put off the inevitable? If you know you need to move, now is the time, because I think as more homes come on the market and as things get a little bit more competitive, but if rates do drop, I think there's going to be an increase in demand.
Oh, yeah.
And I think the housing prices are actually going to go back up. I know manufacturers bring prices back up when demand starts to peak again. And so I think now is the time.
It absolutely is. And our market is unique in the sense that we weren't impacted as much by the yes, property prices increased, but compared to larger markets where they increased so astronomically and then they saw those prices go down crazy. We've always been pretty steady Eddie when it comes to that. You know, we're going to see fluctuations, of course, but we're not going to see huge, massive price drops.
We had a builder friend in Idaho, and his house is Boise, Idaho. It was just off the charts, right? They had an influx of California buyers. We don't see an influx of California buyers to Iowa. I'm not sure why. Maybe our weather.
A little thing called winter, maybe.
Right. But in Boise, I mean, he would list his house like at $430,000. And when he dug the house, right? And by the time it was done, it was over $5,000. And so if somebody backed out, he's like, great, I can make a lot more money. You know what I mean? It was just astronomical how fast prices were increasing in that market. We just didn't see that in Des Moines, Iowa. As much as I would love to experience that just one time in my builder career, I would love to know what that feels like.
Probably not going to happen here in Des Moines.
Not going to happen in Des Moines, Iowa. I'm a builder in Des Moines, Iowa. At the end of the day, that's where it is. But I also think that's great because you don't see the low lows.
That's what I was just going to say. I think that's good though, because yes, we may not see the crazy spikes, but we don't see these, even during the recession. Of course, our market was impacted, but not in comparison to California, places like that.
Right. But I do think we are starting to see a little bit more move-ins to the market. Are you seeing that?
As in people relocating?
Yeah, relocating to Iowa.
Yeah, I end up working with a lot of people relocating. And I think one of the reasons is just finding when you look for a realtor, you're finding somebody online.
Right.
And also they're seeking information. They want to know where they're moving to. So I have worked with quite a few people relocating here, and always not necessarily for the same company or the same role or any of that. Just I had some people just decided that they wanted to move to Des Moines. They read about it, they Googled it, they researched it, and they decided, hey, I'm going to move to Des Moines.
That's great.
With the remote working, people can do that now.
Yeah. Where are you seeing anybody from any particular areas at all? Any particular states?
No, not necessarily. I mean, I've got several people from New York that are coming here, which I always think is interesting. That was historically more of the Meredith connection.
Right.
But recently they haven't been connected to Meredith. So
I think that's the one thing that has hurt our market when we've seen, I think with remote work, people aren't relocating to Des Moines, Iowa the way they used to. I look at our website, and back in the day on hubblehomes.com, one of the largest places was San Francisco.
Really?
Well, that was Wells Fargo's other major headquarters. And so they were looking to move to Des Moines. I saw a lot of San Francisco. Nationwide, you'd see a lot of their execs in Meredith, like that. You're just not seeing those relocations anymore from those major organizations because of remote work. And I think that has impacted. I've seen that impact in downtown sales. Overall in downtown Des Moines, the sales in resale and new construction has just plummeted since COVID. If you got a solution for that, Sarah.
Well, I was actually just going to say, I think that the Des Moines Visitors and Convention Bureau, and the Greater Des Moines Partnership, I do think that they do a fantastic job of getting people to know about this city and how cool it is. And while we're not seeing as many of the large corporations transfer here because they don't have those physical locations, we are seeing a lot of people, a lot of startups. A lot of people that understand that the cost of living is a lot less here. So it is a good place to invest in.
Absolutely. Awesome.
They just don't bring as many people as those big, big companies.
That's okay. Awesome. Well, hey,
we're getting close. I don't want to cut you off. You got probably 4 or 5 minutes, but I know you guys, know each other well enough that you get in on topic and
I feel like we could talk forever.
I know you could.
We totally could. And I think we're going to have lunch after this so we can keep talking about different things.
I love that.
I was actually talking to Sarah. We have some new projects coming up, one in Des Moines that we are trying to figure out. And so,
I am a Des Moines girl.
You are.
I love the city of Des Moines. I love the suburbs as well, but Des Moines is my jam. I invested my office in Des Moines. I live in Des Moines. I was raised in Des Moines. My kids go to Des Moines schools.
Yep.
So I'm all about
your
Des
middle
Moines.
name?
It's not,
Sarah.
but it is my license plate.
Right? If Linda had done that, I would have right? Like, Linda, we got to talk, but that's great. No, big proponent of Des Moines. I mean, we love Des Moines. Hubble has been building in Des Moines, since 1856, so 168 years. We do have a pretty good track record here.
Not too shabby.
Not too shabby. And we want to do it. And I always tell this, I literally had a conversation with another city manager last week, and I was like, we've been doing this for 168 years. We reinvest so we can do it another 168 years.
And I have to give major props to Hubble because there are a lot of builders who are not putting their money in, Des Moines is not the place that they're choosing. They're choosing more of the suburban areas, which those are great as well. But you have made a huge commitment and it's made a huge impact and difference in the city of Des Moines.
Yep.
Not only that, but all of the philanthropic things that Hubble and you and Rick yourselves do to support things such as the Icon water trails and all of that.
I'm so excited for water trails.
Oh my gosh. There is just so many cool things happening in this city. I want to shout it from the rooftops because it is such a cool place to be.
It is. And I have a water rower at home because I'm ready. I want to be ready to row.
It's a whole other episode. We have them coming on later in August. So
good.
There will be some really big updates and some fun topics covered on that one.
Subscribe to the Dig It podcast.
Absolutely.
Basically hit subscribe so you get an alert.
It is a fascinating podcast. You have some awesome guests on.
We do. And now we have you. So,
and we have you today.
I can't wait to share it.
Okay, so Off the Rails. I'm going to toss this one out there since we're almost at time. So Off the Rails is a randomly generated question.
Oh boy.
I know. Nerve-wracking.
You're going to do great.
You'll be fine. Well, you're answering it too.
Oh, I am? Oh, have mercy. I don't think I had to answer it last time.
Oh.
So you've now changed.
Bring it on now.
Oh, it's
All right.
both of you.
Okay.
Maybe I'll answer it too.
You first, Sarah.
You go. All right. What was the best compliment you've ever received? And it can be from anyone. It can be professional. It can be personal. But what was the best compliment you've ever received?
I'm just going to talk about one that recently came to mind. I sat on a panel and my question for the panel was, what makes you a good leader? And I was like, I have no idea. I don't know. So I asked my team what made me a good leader. And they had the most just heartwarming, wonderful responses. And the one that sticks out in my head was that they said, I am like a mama bear. So I'm protective over them and I look after them and how much they appreciated that. So that made me feel good.
Okay. I got a similar one, but I'm not sure it's as positive as yours in some way. Michael Ganaku, if you remember him.
I know Mike.
He gave me a stuffed dragon and he said, "You're mother of dragons." And I was like, I kind of like that because
I like that.
I think she was pretty tough, but he's like, you look after all of us. Like you don't have kids. Like we are your kid. Like this is your family. You invest so much of your life in us. And I was just
I think that's why it is such a compliment though, because it is our heart and soul that we put into all of this. And sometimes it's easy to feel like maybe it's not appreciated.
Yeah.
But to know that your team that you're looking after does recognize that is really cool.
So I haven't got rid of that dragon just because it means so much to me. So I'm like, I'm a
that.
47-year-old woman with a stuffed dragon.
And she was a badass as well.
Totally was. She totally was.
I love that you guys do bring so much passion and knowledge, and again, empowerment, as you had alluded to earlier. So thank you for just sharing that today, but beyond today, because I know you sit on panels, you sit on boards, and so that's just so important to this region. And I loved learning from you. And thank you for the examples, the concrete examples, house A, house B. I needed that. Sometimes it is hard for people to wrap their minds around the market and what's going on. And again, how best to prepare themselves to buy or sell. So I love it. That was all.
And I think so. And you tackled that heavy topic of the real estate rule changes beautifully. And I know that you're going to explain it well to all of your buyers that you're going to represent.
That's kind of been the goal, is practicing. How do we make it, I'm not an attorney. And if we had an attorney on here, his answer would be very,
or her answer.
Correct her. Thank you. I'm saying his because the attorney for Precision is a male and I have relied on him so much, but you're absolutely right. He or she would be explaining things in much more legal terms. And I want it to be easily digestible for people to understand, because homeownership on its own is complicated to understand everything. I don't want to add another layer that makes it difficult for people to understand how to make this happen.
Yep, that's great. So don't be afraid and come to open houses. You're totally cool to come to an open house.
We have great open houses at Grover Woods.
Yes, we do.
In Des Moines and also Tuscany and Altoona and all over the metro.
That's right. All over the metro. All right. Thank you.
Well, thank you guys for joining today. And again, you can catch Dig It, a real estate podcast by Hubble Realty Company, on YouTube if you want to watch and see these beautiful ladies. Or you can catch them wherever you get your podcasts, Google, Apple, Spotify, you name it. Thank you.
Thank you.